Well, that's the thing about, it's interesting because you take the idea and about movies. Movies are like, that's the shared dream, right? That's the thing that everybody experiences in a safe place without experiencing it. So it's this illusion of memory. Everybody comes out of it with a certain experience. Usually, what breaks the illusion is when, you see how it's made, right? You see the green screen. You
Right.
know, like it's done. It's fake. When you watch enough of them, you kind of look beyond it sometimes, hopefully. And I think a lot of creators usually, and especially like when you listen to like Tarantino interviews and things like that, he's really good about going like just layering it, and
Yeah.
he can explain. He goes, you know what? I love the way they did this part of it, and he kind of like some of the things you have to let go because they're made by a committee of people. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When it works, it's brilliant, and that's the cool thing about movies. Now we have video games, and those are a different type of shared experience.
Right.
But it is still a shared experience. But the only problem is that you have those in isolation usually, and that's why video games really can't be movies. And everybody thinks that movies are going to go away. And you and I have had this conversation where it's like we've had this debate about where our movie theaters going away.
No, I don't
And
think so.
well, I kind of do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm in
Okay.
the middle of. I think there'll be less, but there'll still be a lot of them.
Now, when you mean as far as the to see like even bigger productions like the Marvel movies and all that, they're gonna scale back and no more AMC. I mean, that's gonna suck for you and me because
No, no, I'm
Yeah.
also.
Okay.
Yeah, but no. What I mean by they're not going to go away. I think we're going to have
the Megaplex will be culled.
yeah.
They'll still be your new Beverly's and your
Okay.
What's the
I hope this is a
the
hope
Draft House.
actually.
Yeah. I feel pretty confident. I mean,
Yeah.
the resurgence post COVID again. I think that will die down eventually, but I think there will always be people who want to go see movies with a bunch of other strangers and have that shared experience because they're nerds
Yeah.
like us.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the AMC A list, and that's like for me, it's especially being a religion major. What I'm about to say is going to be blasphemous, but I
I
apologize.
have one in my pocket too. So.
But going to the movies is like going to church for me
Yeah.
because I'm going there to listen to an experience a story that I don't know about. Maybe it's whether it's social issues or a creative idea or whatever, and being introduced. And I'm going, okay, is this resonating or doesn't? Okay, if it doesn't, okay, that was fun. Okay, but when the movies do resonate, your mind changes. You're like, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's why for me, I hope movies theater never go away because it's almost a sacred place
Yeah.
for movie fans to go.
Yeah, it's
What
like
do
a
you-
single focus of meditation.
Yeah.
Well, this is
I would say what you said is my ADHD brain, like
Yeah.
tying a bow on the whole conversation.
Yeah.
But what you said about the movies of the shared dream, it just reminds me of the line, David Lynch's line from Twin Peaks: The Return, is "We live inside a dream, but who's the dreamer?" And that made my brain, my ADHD brain, think about. And I've heard this, so many people say it, but going back to my upbringing and specifically Christianity, but religion in general. Dorothy Sayers, who was like, I guess, if I remember correctly, was friends with like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. I think I can't remember if she was in the Inklings or if she was just kind of like adjacent. But she's written some of my favorite like detective novel series. But she also wrote a book, if I remember correctly, called "The Dogma Is the Drama," and the whole idea is like history is God's story that He's telling. Like the redemptive arc of human history is the biggest story that we're actually living through. And so that was an interesting concept, and it always made religion a little bit more interesting to me because I'm like, I like stories, and you're telling me that the big man upstairs is the ultimate storyteller. That's a little bit more appealing than some dusty like, well,
Sure.
you have to blah blah blah.
yeah.
So I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, I'm not personally incredibly religious, but I am fascinated by the mythology of religion.
Yeah.
That's not to say that fake or real or whatever. Who knows? None of us know.
Yeah.
But the mythology to me is the most important part. This is that Joseph Campbell influence of it, where it's like we've all had a shared learned experience of living in the world. Why is it we're only focused on this segment?
Right.
Why aren't we listening to other segments and learning from that as well? We can all learn. Like
Right.
there's no shortage of learning. And you can take those experiences and, sometimes they're so foreign that you'll never get it. But that's also part of being human and figuring out like the world is so vast and so
Yeah.
amazing. This is where movies come in, actually. And like I love the push of the diversity in storytelling. Without getting into the political side of it, it's really interesting when you start allowing the democratization of movies, where you can put cameras in more hands. Now more
Right.
people can tell unique stories. That's a good thing. And then more people will be able to get better with visual effects and things like that, so they can tell their bigger stories in their own custom worlds and things like that. We're all heading towards that. So going back to like movies or movie theaters are going away, I feel like movie theaters are going to be scaled back because it's just not sustainable the way it is right now. But I think the bigger thing is that more movies will be made. Like we're already heading in that direction with streaming, but like the long tail of movies, it's basically that there are more things and more niche audiences that will be created.
Right.
There's always going to be some form of, like corporatization of the movie part of it, right? Where the studios are going to do whatever they're going to do. I'm sure that's probably going to be around. But what happens when, all three of us can open up our own micro studios? What does that do? And we're not going to get. Why would we need to get our movies into movie theaters when the internet is going to be even richer than it is now in the experience of it, like Web3 and things like that, and in AR and VR, everybody's going to have that unique thing. But what's going to tie it all together? So I think more so you're going to see people get together, like staying where they are, but get together online and share those experiences in real time.
Oh, see, I kind of have a disagreement with that because take, for instance, the new Batman movie, right? I know friends that waited till it was on streaming to watch it. I'm like, you don't understand. You have to watch that movie in the theater.
Yeah.
For the number one purpose, your sound.
Yeah.
The sound in that movie made the movie, especially with how he was moving, how he was walking, and particularly when the Batmobile turned on.
Oh, well,
And
you're
you
talking
lo-
about the fidelity of it.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
saying that that's going to be better for everybody. Like, look, we have a theater in the house, right? And I'm very tuned into wanting to have that experience.
Yeah.
So fidelity aside, the technology of that,
Right.
I'm saying, like, okay, so movie theaters, like, I'm sure every community will probably have their one movie theater that everybody goes to.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of it, and it's already happening with streaming and things, the majority of the content of things are going to be distributed.
Right.
TVs are better and cheaper. And
Yeah.
but his counter argument when I make the argument you're making,
Yeah.
and he's got a point, is TVs get better and cheaper, projectors get better and cheaper, surround sound gets better and cheaper, but also VR.
Oh, yeah.
If you put a 2 OLED high res, you can't tell the pixels anymore.
Okay.
You might as well be, and then you can be in a movie theater virtually with your friends.
And
that are on the other side of
everybody
the planet.
has front row wherever they want.
Right.
Have you ever tried watching, now right now, the experience, like big screen and stuff like that? Have you ever tried that in VR?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
I would love to see what you would think of it.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
I guess one of the parts is like when the Batmobile started, right? Going back to that point.
Yeah.
The whole audience went, yeah, and it was just that kind of almost like I'm not the only one.
course.
Other people just got turned on
Yeah.
the same way I
Yeah.
did right now. This is awesome. I'm with a group full of people who are loving this movie like I am. Or Avengers Endgame, when Mjolnir comes into Captain America's
Yeah.
hands. And the whole, I literally jumped out of my seat.
I love it.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
I've only jumped out of my seat in 2 movies ever in my life. And the
Yeah.
other one was Wind River. Have you seen Wind River?
No.
Okay. It's written by Tyler Sheridan.
Oh.
But there's a scene because I was just so like,
Yeah.
the bad guys were winning. I didn't like this, and then something happened, and they got taken down, and I literally went, yes. And I felt bad because I don't like to ruin the movie experience.
But you were in it.
I had to let it out.
Yeah.
But when you hear other people respond, it kind of validates.
Sure.
You know, like, okay, kind of like when you're going to a church. Like,
Yeah.
you hear a word and you needed it, and then
Yeah.
somebody, amen, brother.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay,
I
I don't feel alone.
I had that experience in Top Gun.
Okay. Then you won.
Like
Yeah.
I was in tears beginning to end, and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
cry in movies.
Okay.
A lot of things hit me
Right.
for that movie. And also, like I saw the original in the theater.
Okay.
Had a long conversation with Jack Epps when I was at SC, like about Navy, about motorcycle riding, about American culture and things
Who's
like
Jack
that.
Epps?
He created
screenwriter.
one of the, yeah,
Okay.
created Top Gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
First one.
And then it was interesting because we saw it on Memorial Day, and there was just a lot of like flashbacks of military life and camaraderie.
Right.
And then we saw there was a bunch of veterans in the audience, and they were all clapping, and like it was so like, I was moved.
Right.
And I was moved because of the audience. I think if I would have seen that movie by myself, it would have been great. I
Right.
don't know that I would have had the same, initial experience of it. Maybe I would have, because a lot of other things hit me. It just all was overwhelming. But and then the same argument could be made if let's say I were to see that movie. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
See, I saw it twice. I loved it.
I know. So like, I think you could say, okay, the story is like Star Wars. Basically, it's like whatever. Yes, you can drill it down to its like most minimalist thing. You can do that with any story, really.
Right.
That's not what makes it great. That's not why it made $800 million worldwide, at the box office. Like there is a sense of that culture that it just knew to dial into, and it needed to be in a shared experience. That was exactly what a theatrical experience should be. It should be a shared experience of shared interests and culture and values that is not partisan and all of those things. That's beautiful, like on so many levels, because we need it.
Right.
And yeah, I think that is one of those things. I don't want to see movie theaters go away. That's not my argument.
Right.
My argument is just like it's all cyclical. Like I think there's going to be a time, when the theaters it's just way overhead.
Yeah.
So much stuff that they have to account for. They have to change, and things like Alamo Drafthouse is great because they change it a little bit, and also they as far as I know, the ones in Austin. You've been to the ones in Austin, right? You're from Texas.
I'm from Dallas, so.
Or do they have an Alamo in Dallas, right?
Yeah, I haven't been yet to an Alamo Drafthouse. I guess I've been
at all?
No.
I've never been.
What?
There's one in Maryland now, or Virginia, I think, but I've.
Oh, well.
Isn't there supposed to be one in LA?
Here's
but they
the
never built
interesting.
it or something?
Yeah, there is one in downtown, I think.
They finally
Oh,
built
okay.
it. Yeah.
So Alamo Drafthouse in Austin is great because like you'll go in there and they'll show like short films by local community people
Right.
before the movie. That's awesome.
Would you say it's the decentralized movie theater experience?
I mean, that's what I
Pretty
think
much.
it's going to be, right?
They'll
So
be more and more niche. So
Yeah.
instead of seeing Top Gun, for instance, with people who are just like chasing babies in the aisle and people are just like
Yeah.
on their cell phone, it's going to be everyone's there because they want to see that thing.
Yeah.
So you'll probably
Like
get
a
more.
concert.
You'll probably get more of that experience that you had from Top Gun.
Yeah.
The more niche things get, because I mean, I even in Baltimore in 2013, I think I saw they had a series. Some of the local semi-well-known artists had a series called Gunky's Basement, and it was like them playing their favorite movies on film. So I saw Die Hard, Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, I think one other thing, and then when I saw Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, there's like, hey, they did little intro, introducing it. And they're like, who here has never seen it? And like 2 people raised their hand, and they're like, oof, buckle up.
Buckle up.
But it was interesting because like, everyone there was there because they knew what they're getting into, and there was like crowd response, but it wasn't, the annoying, the downsides of going to a megaplex where like, we randomly bought our 5-year-old to this rated R film because it's just that
Yeah.
sort of thing will be less and less, I think. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of, getting out of the house, you do the check boxes of what movie theaters, it's a couple-hour getaway, it's escapism, some people, blah, blah, blah. You can dial in all those things. There's lots of things that we can do to do that.
Right.
How can they change movie theaters to make them exciting? And yes, make better movies, for one thing, and, make more of them so that they go into theaters. But, like, streaming, I think as much as they're going to try to, especially with Netflix getting hit and things like that, and like, I think what it feels like the changing is we're all trying to figure it out, and there's a battle between the mass distribution and the decentralized distribution. Decentralization is always going to win.
Right.
Like in the long run, decentralization wins. The internet won, right? And there's a battle of centralizing it in a lot of ways, but I think my hope and also just seeing how things go is that when you start to allow more people to take responsibility of themselves and doing and their part in it, we'll get there. And then we'll get there in a beautiful way because other things will be invented to help bring that community together, and people will holistically do it. And maybe this is the libertarian in me, but it's like, these smaller communities and bringing people together in their own communities rather than it being like in mass and large. I think we're going to come back to community focused events and movies and things like that where people can do that. And crypto might play a part in that. NFTs might play a part in that. VR and AR might play a part in that. If they, if certain things wind up being social, like you go like social media, we're in social media 2.0 or whatever. Like when we go to social media 3 and web 3, you're going to start seeing, I think, more like meetup groups. And yet they don't have to be like in person. Like, okay, here's a good example. Trying to find nerds in LA. We're everywhere.
Yeah.
How do we all meet up? And it's weird because you're not just going to go, hey, are you into this? It's not like that. But if you find a way that brings everybody together in an interesting way, people will start to then meet in those ways. And maybe there need to be safer ways because you're dealing with women, men, and all kinds of ages. Who knows?
Yeah.
You do it in a way that's like in some type of AR or VR. Maybe that's a way in. Maybe those communities strengthen because you start doing things like these podcasts. Everybody's doing podcasts now.
Yeah.
What is the need for that? Podcasts are a really great example of this. The fact that we set up a couple of cameras, some basic lights and mics, and we're sitting here nerding out over stuff, having conversations we normally would, but we're going to put it online. There's a need to put that stuff in front of other people. I think it's an act of saying, hey, like find our community. Let's all that's what it is, right? And once you do that, it's a strong thing. And it's a yes and. Right? You can be a fan of this, 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 and this, and everybody can be a fan of all those things. And it's not a competition. There's no competition in this field. That's what makes it beautiful.
Right.
That's That's a beautiful decentralization.
I think for me, like when I look at my podcast / YouTube habits, like obviously there's certain segments of that are like, I want to learn about this or learn more about this other thing. But there is some of it I just watch because it's comfort viewing, basically.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, in terms of starting some of my own stuff, I'm like, what's the point? It's oversaturated. But then I realized I watch like 3 to 5 channels that effectively cover the same material. But I think maybe it's in an age of hypercritical, polarizing stuff. I like hearing 5 different people's positive or mostly positive opinions about a thing I love because they're all actually different and they'll bring their personal experience in. And I'm like, yeah, it's not hearing the same thing over and over again. It is, if you drill down to it, yes. But like with the movies, it's like, well, there's only so many plot structures you can do. It's how the details of it. So I think that's another interesting, the whole side of hearing different positive takes in an era of like hypercritical, hyperpolarized.
Headlines, and I hope this kind of goes away, but the monetization of things that happen online is by, really crazy headlines. That's what gets the clicks, right? We went from, not too long ago, we had the BuzzFeed, 10 things about this, 10 ways of, the lists. And that list, went to, and then, the headlines in politics. And this is cash for like all of these companies. It was until now we're all just sick of it.
Yeah.
Those are like the ebbs and flows. I think we're going to work our way towards what is the natural thing that we're all into. We know we can all make a living at. I know everybody has to figure out a way to monetize so they can keep it going and, concentrate and be able to do more of these types of things. And I think that's the way in is possibly through some type of my thing is I think crypto and blockchain is the way in to that. I think it's inevitable. I don't know of another technology that's this far ahead and just ready to open that door. There's the financial side of it, and that's a whole other thing because who knows? Like finances, especially on the global side, is all about power and money, and it's a real estate business, But like the technology behind blockchain of being able to track certain things and metadata that's really smart and very secure. I think once we get to that point, that is going to open up ways for everybody to be able to do these things and be able to monetize throughout the chain of the life of whatever projects that you're doing. And that's where we're going to get to like true decentralization. Now, are the hiccups and all that kind of stuff? Sure. So going back now to the movie theater, how does that get taken away? You're going to start to see when more people, let's say let's say this podcast finds its audience, becomes a thing,
Right.
and we've had talks about certain things that we want to create, right? And that's not necessarily a movie theater. It's a movie. It could be a theater experience built into something else. So that's where I think I would like to see more of those types of things, and then that becomes the movie theater plus. It's like that is part of the experience of whatever it is, because you want to get people to get out of their environment into something that is more community based.
Right.
And I think sitting in front of a screen for 2 hours is part of something, but it doesn't have to be the only thing, right?
Right.
I think more people will catch on to that. So
And also, I think for me, I'm weird because I'm a single guy, no responsibility, and I have an AMC movie pass. So I'm only spending like $25 a month. So going down to the theater to go see a movie is really convenient for me, as opposed to somebody who has work schedules, family issues, other things that they have to fit their day around, and if
Yeah.
they have babysitting, that's an additional cost, and then
Yeah.
like all these costs. But me, I'm just like, I walk into the theater, cool, had an edible, cool, excellent, walk out, cool.
Yeah.
But then some people are like, oh, I wish I could do that, but you don't understand my life. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. And I also like the solitude of going to the theater by myself. If there's nobody in the movie, I have this huge screen, I have great surround sound, and there's nobody to distract me.
yeah,
Because at home, if I'm watching something, whether it's streaming or DVD, oh, I need to go do this, pause or just let it play, and I miss scenes in the movie or in this show.
but you could, if you're in a movie theater and you really got to pee.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's usually the-
that's why I kind of plan. I kind of know my bladder,
Yeah.
by that point. So
Yeah. Well, yes, I think it would be interesting. And we're very close to these display technologies that are going to be like what Apple is going to come out with, or like 8K, HDR, and Sony is already doing that with their new PlayStation VR 2. It's going to be, I believe it's an OLED panel that
Okay.
is going to be HDR. So imagine that type of experience in virtual reality. That's going to be pretty mind-blowing. And if you can make it, if you can then watch a screen in 4K or even 2K, and you can make it as big or as small as you want, and then you have really great sound, that's going to take away all that experience of like, why do I need to go to the movie theater? Really, you're only going to need to go to the movie theater because you are going to you want the community experience, you get out of the house, but you're trying to go because you don't have the big screen.
right.
And then if you have the big screen that's in your eyeballs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I get your point because I just noticed I gave two things that I like the shared experience, and sometimes I like being the only person in the theater. So it's like I don't want to say it's contradictory, but it's just funny. Like,
Yeah.
And you bring up a
Depends
great
on
point that if I had this stuff available to me like that at home, would I even need to? Especially
Right.
with gas being it is what it is right now.
Yeah.
Driving in a theater when I can just like be at home.
Now I've been to some theater experiences that take me out of the experience.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's been like that the past few times. Before Top Gun, there was a few movies we went to, and there were people kicking the seats, or there were people like talking through the movie or making out. There was a couple. We went to go see.
Loudly making out.
Yeah, we went to go see the last James Bond movie,
Uh-huh.
and they were like, you can hear them like, and then they're like slapping, like swapping spit, like
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing. And I was just like, man, like
Yeah.
I paid for this, like.
Yeah.
So, and what are you gonna do? Like everybody's, you could be the rude person, or they're the rude people,
Yeah.
but you could be the one that's just like, stop it.
Person.
Yeah.
But then, then that completely takes it out because everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing. Anyways, on top of that, some of the tuning that they do in the movie theaters, once you have your own system, you don't need to spend a lot on it. Once you have your own system and you're tuning it, then you start figuring out what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes like your temple at home.
Yeah.
Not a hard thing to do. But when if you don't have the space, which of course, and you've got glasses to do that, yeah, forget about it. That's going to be everything.
Yeah.
It's so funny, like, you think about, like, everybody was like, first we went to, like, the movie theater with a big screen, and then we have the TV experience, and then we have the phone, and people are watching. I'll watch stuff on my phone, especially if it sounds really good. Like AirPods, I could put on that, noise cancel, and get spatial audio. I'm good
Wow.
because you're in it, you know. And then going from the phone then to glasses, like of course that's the next thing.
Yeah, I'm still definitely, and I'm curious what the science will be in the long run with like someone who's pretty freaking blind, with eyesight and the headsets and stuff. I'm sure they'll have more science, but also they'll fix whatever issues come along. But
Yeah.
I'm very much team. I love my VR headset, but even if it was crystal clear for movies, if I could come downstairs and watch it on the projector, I'd probably still do that just for it's easier on my eyes. Blah blah blah. But I mean, I like having both. Options are nice.
Well, VR is still early.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. So what they're obviously they're studying how eye strain and things like that. That's the kind of stuff they'll figure out, and then they got to work it
sure.
into the design of it because you got this big old thing on your face. Like right now, the Oculus 2, the Quest 2 is basically a cell phone on your face, right? There's still a top heavy thing, but now they're making it glasses. So like if you can wear glasses like these that kind of wrap around, then maybe that strain won't be there, and maybe they offload the processing to something in the back or whatever. Like they'll figure out that kind of stuff. Really, it's the fidelity, and the fidelity is already there. Screen technology is already there. So now they have to figure out how all that fits in together holistically and be able to, what you're hearing is that you basically have like the new Apple VR AR sets are like having a laptop on your face. Like, what does that even mean? So, next year is going to be interesting, and the year after is going to be really interesting for that new wave of things.